Putin talk about the Ukrainian government as being full of neo-Nazis. As somebody who is of Jewish descent, how do you react to those statements?
Well, there are rare occasions when I smile and when I laugh. For me to hear it, it's as if something similar to a joke. I cannot take this statement seriously. So, upon hearing the situation, hearing the statements at first, you just think to yourself that this person has been in the leadership position for so many years, and this person is supposed to have a very clear understanding of what Ukrainian people are because of the Soviet legacy. But I think that currently Putin is an information bubble. I think this is information bunker, and it is so powerful, this bunker of information, that he really thinks that Ukrainians are neo-Nazis. So this is a laughable statement for me. But then a strike of fear resurfaces. I'm not afraid of anything except for people. But the fact is that if he is serious about these statements, he might be capable of very horrendous steps, because that would mean that this is not a game for him. If he really believes in this, if it's not a game, then we will just continue fighting against it. If it's a game, but if it's not a game, if he's serious about it, if he thinks that this is his mission to conquer our territories, and if he sees signs of neo-Nazism in our country, that many questions emerge about what else he is capable of doing for the sake of his ambitions and for the sake of his mission. So this what gives rise to a feeling which is not very pleasant and which is very frightening, very hazardous, that it can be an information bubble which will continue to exert pressure, and it will pressurize Putin to further escalation.
Can I ask you something about your family history? Your grandfather, Simeon, is the only survivor out of the Holocaust and World War II. Tell us a little bit about that, and what was the lesson, what are the values you drew from it when you would hear those stories in your family?
Well, my grandfather and his 4 brothers were living in an ordinary village, and then the Second World War started. My grandfather was graduating from military college at that time, and all of his brothers went to war because their father said that they had to protect the country. They had to fight fascism, so they went to war, and all the brothers died. And my grandfather survived the entire war. His father and his mother were killed in a terrible fire. The Nazis set ablaze the entire village where they lived and where my grandfather was born. All the brothers perished in the front line. He was alone to be left standing. He returned home. He ended up in the city of Kryvyi Rih, where I was born. He was a captain of an infantry unit. He was awarded with a number of military orders, like a Red Cross, like a Red Star, for his heroism and his bravery. He was wounded at war, And after the war, he started working as an investigator, catching criminals, and eventually he became a colonel in independent Ukraine. So that is his basically his life story. So when Russians are telling about neo-Nazis and they turn to me, uh, I just replied that I have lost my entire family in the war because all of them were exterminated during World War II. A number of my distant relatives are still are still living. Some of them are in the United States, in Poland, or in Israel. That is what I know. So basically, that is all. So Nazism in our family evokes a huge amount of misunderstanding. So we do not understand what they are talking about. What kind of Nazis in the country? Uh, we fought a war with these people, Nazis. So I have a question to those who are raising this topic of Nazism in the Russian Federation. I'd like to hear from them, in what front lines did their grandfathers fought? What countries their grandfathers liberated? How their grandfathers fought the Nazi Germany? I have this question to them. When some politicians in Russian Federation are raising this topic of neo-Nazism, Nazism, and fascism related to me, I have a question that, well, my biography is open, and everyone is well aware about my biography. You can find facts about my family and open sources. But what about the relatives of Russians? Uh, I do not know about anything about their relatives of Russians who fought in the Second World War, who was talking about neo-Nazis. The entire territory of Ukraine was occupied. The Nazi regime occupied the entire territory of Ukraine, and Ukraine fought against Nazis. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, for more than 70 days, Kiev resisted the offensive of Nazis. It fought the way it is fighting now. It has always been fighting. For many days, it was repelling the attacks. It was a great battle. Many people were dead, but they continued their resistance. And I know many people in Russia who were occupied and who struggled against Hitler's regime. But Kyiv was occupied, and Moscow was not. And you cannot say, they cannot just say about their feelings that Ukraine is a betrayer or that we are neo-Nazis, because Russians are acting in the same manner as neo-Nazis at the moment. If you take a look at the history, at scientific materials, you can just look at what Nazis did. They blockaded Kiev, they blockaded other cities to prevent the supplies of water and food, and this is exactly what Russians are doing now. This is what they are doing in Mariupol. They are just going to the city saying that everything is going to be all right, and that this is Russian territory. They're just claiming it, so their methods have remained unchanged. And the fact is that they are betraying the history of their own homeland. Because what we are having now in Mariupol, in Kyiv, they had the same in Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, formerly known as Leningrad. Everyone knows how many people died during the blockade of Leningrad. These people did not have enough food and water, and this is exactly what is happening in Ukraine. So who is the Nazi?